I'm Jeff Cornwall, and this is the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today our guest is Ned Horton. We'll be back to talk with him after these words from our sponsor.
Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
Welcome back. Well, thanks for joining us today. And you've had quite a journey. You said, I remember you said you moved here in the late 90s, is that right? Or late 80s?
80s, 86.
Okay. And
Correct.
you came here to work in the radio business, correct?
I was in radio and was sent from New England
Oh, wow.
to Tennessee
Yeah.
in 1986, right?
Right. And so you broke in the radio business, and then soon after that started your own agency, is that correct? And kind of talk about that whole process and how it happened.
Well, I think, actually to go back, getting out of college, I determined I wanted to own my own radio station. And as I talked to folks that did own their station, they said, well, you got to learn sales.
Right.
You got to come up through sales, general management, and then maybe someday you can buy your own. And that was the advice that was given to me. So I was working towards that goal, and eventually was able to achieve that. And then when I left radio, I had to look for something else to do, and
Right.
It's been a continuous journey in that regard.
So you got into your market agency, that was in the 90s?
Let's see. Well, when I left radio, it would have been 96.
Okay.
So as I was thinking about what I liked about the radio business, I liked the music a lot, but I also like dealing with the customers and helping them with their advertising and marketing. So hanging out my shingle and helping customers with their advertising and marketing seemed to make sense. At the time, the internet was pretty new.
Right.
Websites were pretty new. So it was a very small piece of what we did, but over the years became quickly a large part.
And so have you found that progression to be kind of a natural thing for you guys, and you've been able to keep up and diversify, and because I know some agencies have struggled sometimes with some of the changes that have happened recently.
Well, I think you have to be nimble and realize that literally every couple months you're going to be doing something differently.
Right.
And I think we got a handle on that pretty early on. At the time, I remember thinking that the internet was the new form of media, and I wanted to figure out what all we could do with it,
right.
and how we could push customers' messages through the internet, and how people would get their news and information through the internet. And radio had gotten to the point where it was so expensive to buy a radio station anymore, particularly in a big market.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you had this new channel opened up that's literally you could hang your shingle out and say, I've got my .com, here I am.
Right.
This is what I'm doing, and it was pretty exciting.
So did you look at all at internet radio as something you wanted to think about, or was that?
I did, and it was quickly kind of cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like a good road to go down at that point, and there was so much other activity going on that I guess we got caught up in the wave of just helping people solve their problems. So.
Now, more recently, you've started to get into some other different endeavors and started to get involved with some very different kinds of businesses. Can you talk about the first time you kind of made that step and said, I'm going to do something else and play in a little bit different space as an entrepreneur or an investor?
Well, I think oftentimes, actually, we were just talking soccer here the other minute. Whatever it is, you're presented with an issue. In this case, it was my kids' soccer coaching and where are they going to play, and
right.
there are big clubs here and there's little clubs here. Well, what about something in the middle? What about something in Nashville? So it seemed like a void. So got together with some other parents and we start something. I think I have a tendency to want to, if you see that something can be done better,
right.
you see there's an opportunity, you have a tendency to just say, let's go.
And
you don't have all the answers, necessarily all the questions aren't buttoned up, but let's go.
Right.
We're committed to this. We feel strongly about it. let's go do it.
Did you find some challenges when you got into something that's a little bit more of a pastime than maybe a true business model? Or
There's always challenges, but it's fun learning.
right.
You know, and others will help you get a grasp, and you
And then
learn
you
by
got
your
it-
mistakes.
And you got into some real estate too, haven't you?
real estate, yes. I got thinking this was again about 10 years ago. You're always churning over client projects,
Right.
and they're rewarding and they're creative, but then you're on to the next thing. It's like,
Right.
well, what do I have that's kind of stable?
Right.
And so real estate seemed like an answer to that, scratch that itch, if you will, something that would be for the long term that I could pass down to my kids. And as you get into remodeling, renovating, that also you can be creative. You can learn through that process, and you can replicate that with future projects.
So what was the first project you got involved with?
Actually, a property not too far from here, a house that was going into foreclosure, that was kind of a thorn in the side of the neighborhood and needed some love and attention.
Right.
And so I saw it as a good opportunity. It was undervalued and could be improved.
So how's the life of a landlord? That's one of the challenges I know that I have found when I've dabbled in that. Is I was kind of surprised at the amount of work sometimes that took to.
It is a lot of work, and I guess ultimately my solution was to have enough volume that I could hire a couple competent,
Right.
seasoned people to just take care of that part, so that
Right.
I'm not dealing with the leaky faucets and the.
And you'd mentioned something to me earlier about a coffee roasting that you're getting into.
Correct. Our offices, the building that we occupy, that we bought a couple of years ago, I bought a couple of years ago. The workflow and the way it's renovated and decked out has a feel of a coffee shop, and the environment. You know, I like people to get together, move around the place, and work on projects together. And when you think about actually even the early days of the internet, you went to the internet cafe
Right.
to get your service, and to this day you see designers and developers that are working freelance, they go, or writers, whatever, they go to the coffee shop and get their work done or have their meetings. So we had kind of that environment set up. We just needed the coffee. So I went looking for a roaster, found an entrepreneurial roaster. We've teamed up, put a little coffee shop in the front, and are looking to build the roasting.
So it's a retail coffee shop now.
You can walk in the front and go over to the side, and yeah, we
And
welcome
then your staff is over on
and
the
our
other side.
Staff occupies the rest of the floor and all the way down to
Interesting.
the back.
Has that caused any kind of tension or conflict?
No, the serious developers wanted to move to the way back where they could be really quiet. You know,
Right.
It's like a library back there. But the sales team and those of us that are collaborating like the open front area. And there's some side offices where you can have privacy or meetings or whatever. So,
What an interesting use of space.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and joining us today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.